roughly now. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Friday night, 7 o'clock, and the Red Cup Review family is in full force tonight. I'm joined by my partner and best buddy, Baz, and boy, do we have a damn special occasion set for you guys. My inner 12-year-old that used to read Wizard comics is jumping up and down, you know what I'm saying, deep down in here. So I want to introduce everybody to Mr. Dan Fraga.
Hello.
Hey, what's
How
up,
are you?
man?
How's it going?
Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Happy
Really
to do
appreciate
it. Happy to do it.
It's freaking awesome. Baza hit me up a couple of days yesterday, I believe, and was like, "Yo, guess what? I'm talking with Dan Fraga," and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like, really?
Yeah, man. I'm super accessible, man. Like that's the thing. It's like if anybody approaches me and they're, respectful, I'll talk to you all day long.
That's awesome, man.
And Baz is very, very respectful. So.
It's cool, man.
I've been here,
most of the time.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that there's, and I say this periodically on the show, you never meet your heroes, because a lot of times we've gone to Comic-Cons and have ran into guys that we were like, oh shit, it's so and so, and have kind of gotten like the side eye from them. Maybe they weren't so cordial, and me and Baz looking at each other like, yo, is these people serious? Like,
that's funny. My buddy Mike and I, we used to do this TV show when we were teenagers. It was essentially a YouTube show, except, we didn't have the internet. It was called Comic Review for You. And we did this like live show. And sometimes we do some pre-tape stuff. And our very first convention that we did as our TV show, we filmed a bunch of people. And we kind of arrived at the conclusion that like, it's kind of weird that like we ran into three types of professionals. And it was the kind of a crazy thing. It was very consistent. There was the really strange guy. Like you would meet the professional and you're like, yo, they're just weird, right? And then you'd meet the guy where you're like, man, that guy's the nicest guy in the world. And then you'd meet the other guy and you're just like, wow, that guy's a dick, And we found that we kind of had like a little list, like this guy's okay, this guy's weird, the other guy's a dick, and we had a running list. So yeah, some of the heroes fall right into there.
It's so friggin' true, man. That's why we're laughing so hard.
And they get like a little bit of that rock star-ism.
Some of it, yeah. Here's the thing, man. Like, it depends on who you are, how you were raised, but it also hits you. I mean, remember that, like, obviously it's a work of fiction, but Peter Parker's first thing to do is go, beat up a wrestler and make money. That was his first thought when he became Spider-Man, and it took sort of a life lesson for him to realize like, oh shit, I got to take this seriously. That whole great power requires great responsibility. And I think that happens. I know for me, like when I first broke in, I was 6 months out of high school, started at Image Comics. There was probably a good 3 or 4 months I thought I was hot shit, and then eventually you go, nah, man, I'm just drawing pictures, you know what I'm saying?
Is that like you broke in? You were relatively young, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I was 18. I just I was 18 and a half. Yeah, I just turned 18. Right after I graduated, I turned 18, and then I got hired in December of '91, and I graduated in June of '91.
Right. So you go like from being this eighth. Well, we're not even really considered adults truly until we're like around 25, right? So you got to have a little bit of world perspective. You got to be humbled a little bit. See how maybe the people that are ahead of you in the game, listen to them, hopefully some good sage advice.
There was some good advice. There was some bad advice. I mean, that's the thing.
What's the worst advice you got?
That's so funny, man. I have a bunch of interviews that I did for my show, and I've pre-taped them over the last 2 years. And that's like one of my favorite questions I ask people. Worst advice I ever got was from Eric Larson, which was, I hope you're good at making pizzas because you're never going to draw comics. So there's that. And then the other one that I don't like, because it kind of needs a bit of I think they're best. The advice comes with the best spirit, but it's not necessarily the best advice. They say, if you want to learn how to draw comics, don't look at comics, right? And they forgot one word, just. Don't just look at comics, because if you ignore, like I definitely go, okay, study some life drawing. That's great. Because there's nothing like seeing it. Sculpture is good too, because it's nothing like feeling that shape out. And drawing from real life is great. but the true power of comic book exaggeration comes from looking at other comics. So you're basically, that advice is doing anybody a disservice unless you want them to be the blandest artist.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah, I used to do music, and what we used to do is not just listen to what the music we were listening to, is listen to just different types of music ultimately.
Amen.
You know?
Amen. Yeah, like if you I don't know if you're a hip hop guy, but like there's a producer named Metro Boomin. And if you listen to Metro Boomin and then listen to Chopin, you go, he's listening to Chopin. He's literally just taking Chopin and transporting it over to hip hop. So it's kind of a trip. It's exactly what you say.
Yeah, we used to do that with, again, I was involved in like hip hop music, and we would listen to rock music and then infuse the rock music into our rap music and stuff. Cause you know, we were, so like, yeah, whatever, we would sample like stuff like Jimi Hendrix and, you know,
who's your favorite MC?
Rakim.
Oh my man. Can I show you something? Let me go grab it. Hold on a second.
Oh shit.
No, you can't show us anything.
Nah, Dan Fraga.
So excited, dude. I'm so excited.
Hold on, I'm gonna bring you up. Oh, sweat.
Oh, nice.
Oh, hold on. This is my favorite part.
Yo, where the hell did you get that, bro?
I met him. Well, the first time I met him was in California, and I had bought my tickets, but then I won tickets, right? So I ended up taking another homie of mine with me, and it turns out that that homie was friends with the cameraman on Rakim's tour. Oh. So I got to meet Rakim backstage. We talked a little bit. Then I moved out here to Georgia, and they were doing the book tour, and I had Rakim's manager's number. So I reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, I'm coming down. Is it cool if I spend a little time?" And so I came down and got to see him and talk to him for a little bit. But yeah, the God is number one.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, there is no. Yeah, it's
yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad he didn't be like B.I.G. Tupac.
Nah,
come on, man.
It's like it's actually like Rakim is like my number one, but it's to the point like where Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie. Like I don't even count it anymore.
Right.
Like, when someone asks me what my favorite movie is, I get tired of saying Empire Strikes Back, so I got to just say something else because that's cemented above everything else. Yeah. So it's like the same thing with Rakim. It's like he's number one, and then there's everyone else.
That's right. That's right.
My favorites are Young MC and Snow.
You know what? Young MC, you know that show Wild, that song Wild Thing by Toho? Young MC wrote that.
Oh,
so he's beyond like Bust a Move and Ought to the Principal's Office. He also wrote hits for other people. And Snow, do you know why he didn't blow up the way he could have blown up? Because that album was okay. His crime record in Canada made it so he couldn't travel outside of Canada. And the United States, which is the biggest market, he wasn't allowed to tour. So basically, he put out an album, couldn't tour on it, and gone.
Wow.
Yeah, but I like your humor. I do. if you're like, I like Mark Wahlberg when he was Marky Mark, and I like the guy Dominic from CNC Music Factory. I'd be like, all right then.
There you go.
Oh man, yeah. Most of the people I like, guys like Rakim, like Jizza from Wu-Tang is who else? Guru from Gangstar is like
Guru. Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, obviously, Guru is great, but I'm of the mind that anybody that gets some primo beats is instantly blessed, and you better bring it.
Yeah, know? Exactly. Well, it's really Gangstar. You know, let's say it's like Gangstar is it's like that's the duo. You know, it's funny that his beats are so awesome that he's like literally half. You know, maybe even a little bit more. Than, you know, in the grand scheme of things when you're listening to them.
And the weird thing is so many people identify them with New York, and they're like Boston dudes, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like from a totally different place. That's cool, man. That's cool. You like hip hop. I love pretty much all music. That's the thing. Like there's songs I don't like, but for the most part, like I like all music, but hip hop would go number either 1 or 1.5 because I really dig jazz, like Miles Davis. I could listen to Miles Davis forever.
That's awesome. My father-in-law was a big time jazz guy. He used to go see what's his face, Charlie Parker and stuff.
Oh shit!
And
Yeah.
he was there for. I studied all these guys in college. I took a jazz class in college, not an instrument class, but an actual jazz study. And then when I met my wife and met her father, I had all this stuff to talk to him about because I had studied all this shit.
He's like, "You're okay."
He's like, "Yeah, yo, you're you know your stuff. That's cool." I was like, "Oh, all right, great."
You know who's a trip in that whole sort, like in that scene? He's kind of got like this beautiful thread. Is Quincy Jones?
Oh,
like,
right.
you know, in the 50s, he had his own band. In the 60s, he was a band leader. Then in the 70s, he was doing soundtracks. The late 70s, he did Michael and then Frank Sinatra again. He did all that Count Basie stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Quincy Jones. He's like one of the other guys. Like he's my Rakim in producer world. You know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Damn, man, it's cool. Me and Baz are pretty much, I would say, predominantly like you're a little bit more metal than I am, Baz, but we're rock guys. You know,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm not true school rock. Like I didn't listen to a lot of rock. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so like the bands like Zeppelin, like in the 80s it was like Guns N' Roses, that kind of stuff. But like I never listened to Slayer or Slipknot or Gwar or anything like that. It was like mostly like the stuff that was a little more upfront.
Yeah.
I went from like listening to Michael Jackson, like Thriller, that era. I actually had my mother make a sequin glove for me, and she put on each sequin individually by hand.
That's love, dude.
That is love. That's why I tell the story to this day.
Yeah.
And I actually had the Beat It jacket. I think it was gray though. It was the gray.
Yeah. There were these stores in the 80s, and it depended on where you grew up. That in some places they called them merry-go-round. Some places they called them Chess King, but they sold like parachute pants, the Thriller jacket, but they had like a black and white Thriller jacket and like that gray one, and like the red always sold out no matter if it was a Beat It or the other one, you know. And
that's why I could only buy the gray.
Yeah, because of course they sold out, and man, I wanted one so bad. And now on eBay, like I kind of want one, not to rock, obviously that'd be ridiculous, but I kind of want one, you know. But I also want to like put it on once, but it seems like all of them are all like I have to wear a 2X because I got like very long arms. I got like I'm 6'2", but my wingspan is 6'3" for some reason. I drag my knuckles like some crazy caveman. And yeah, jackets, like even if I get an extra large, the sleeves come up to here.
Well, you have your own YouTube show, right?
I do. It's my channel's called Couch Doodles, and we talk mainly about art. I do process, like I do a lot of live drawing. Like, you know, I just did this cover. I have an Indiegogo campaign going with Dynamite Comics right now for the new appearance of Black Flag and Red Sonja, and I try to document live the process of drawing that cover as we did it. You know,
talking about this.
That's the one I'm talking about. There's Evil Ernie. My live stream last week, you could watch me draw Evil Ernie from start to finish live. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, look at that. We're doing good. Wow. That's awesome. Last I saw, we were down at like 7-1. There we go. That's great.
A nice surprise, right? That's always awesome. So if you don't take yourself too seriously, you could always throw on the Michael Jackson jacket during one of your live streams and draw with it.
Yeah, if I could find one, man. Maybe my wife is a fantastic. I call her the crafty. She's crafty. She makes all kinds of stuff. She makes tumblers. She can make clothes. I think she would probably kill me if I say, "Yo, you know, I need the Beat It jacket," because that's the one I liked. I like Baz. That's the one I liked more than the Thriller one. But you kind of have to get the shirt to match, you know, and it's like, I don't know. It would
you
look
can even
funny.
take off the sleeves, dude.
Yeah, right. It's got
like
the zippers, right? Yeah, the
Yeah.
zippers and everything. Man, that was the weird thing about the 80s. A lot of zippers, man. You remember parachute pants where it was zippers on the legs and you could poof them out, and like, and kangaroo shoes where it had zippers in a pocket where you can, like, you know, the people that did the doobies and stuff would hide them in there. But usually it's like, you know, milk money.
No need to hide them anymore. Thank you.
No. Well, where are you guys at? Where you in California?
Well, I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm in New York.
Yeah. See, I came from California where it was literally like going down to the liquor store and getting some beer. Like, you go, hey, I need to get my, some gelato, go down, get it. Nobody's bothering you. It's not even a weird thing. And now I live in Georgia where it's illegal. So it's like, man.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The greeneries. Yeah.
Yep.
The shrubberies, as they say,
Yeah.
Monty Python.
Yeah, nice. I love
So tell me about this Indiegogo thing you got going on real quick. Let's promote it a little.
Great, yeah. Well, Black Flag was this comic book that I did in the '90s. I created them in 1993. They debuted in Extreme Zero. We did a preview edition with a cover inked by Todd McFarlane in 1994, and then the series debuted in January of '95. And then we did 4 issues in a number 0, and then we put it in a vault. And this was a way, Dynamic, I keep calling them Dynamic Forces because that's what they used to be called. Dynamite Entertainment reached out to me and said, hey man, we heard you were going to bring back Black Flag. And the interesting thing is back in 1993, Dynamic Forces as a company had started, and they did this card set called Dynamic Forces Universe Card Set, where they reached out to several, I think maybe even 100 creators and said, hey, create something of your own and make it a trading card, and we'll make this the first appearance place. So I had done this character called Hellfire. He's basically like the devil. And I did this card. And so that's the very, very first appearance of any character from Black Flag. So when they heard I was bringing Black Flag back, they said, yo, we got to do something with Black Flag. And I said, what stuff do you have? And they showed me Red Sonja and Evil Ernie. And like Red Sonja debuted in Conan the Barbarian number 23. And 23 is like my favorite number. And it also came out in 73. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like my birth year, my favorite number. So I said, let me do that. And while I was looking through their catalog of someone else to do, I saw Evil Ernie. I definitely identify with Evil Ernie because his debut comic came out the month I was hired in comics. So it was very serendipitous to be able to have my team appear on a cover for the first time in 25 years, along with these characters that kind of have a personal connection to me. So it just felt 100% right. And I also felt like, why not see what Indiegogo is about? I've never had a campaign. My first campaign is coming up April 25th for the return of Black Flag. So this was kind of a celebration and kind of the trumpeting blast right before we launch.
Nice. That's awesome, man. That's
Thank you.
Awesome. So this will be the new Black Flag is going to be available on April 25th, you said?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, mark it on your calendars. This is through Indiegogo, obviously.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's called Black Flag Pineapple Perception. It's going to be a 48-page part 1 of something. You guys fans of Dark Knight by Frank Miller?
Of course. What?
Okay. I mean, some people, some people, that's my favorite comic of all time. So my format is exactly like Dark Knight. It's got a really nice hard cardstock cover with a spine, and we're doing 48 pages. I have an incredible art team. I have a co-writer, this guy named Will Perdomo, who is immensely smarter than I am. He takes my ideas and we vibe against them, and he makes them a million times better. I've got an inker coming on. I'm saving that announcement for down the road. I'm really excited about my new inker, and I've got a colorist named Matt Yackey. He comes from Marvel and DC. He's colored a lot of Rob Liefeld books, a lot of DC books. And then I have and a lot of people don't big up their letterers, but my letterer is a guy named Ken Brusniak, and Ken lettered Howard Chaykin's American Flag. Every Howard Chaykin comic you've ever seen has Ken's letters. And if you were a big fan of Punisher in the 80s, all of those Punishers were also lettered by Ken. Mm-hmm. I wanted that feel. I wanted that very graphic feel because lettering done right is part of the artwork. It's not. It's just
amazing how so much stuff that comes together. There's stuff that you don't even realize.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. It's like a sausage factory, you know?
I was talking to a dude 2 nights ago at work. He was talking to me about how he watched Conan the Barbarian again. He's a big Conan the Barbarian fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, that's one of my favorite movies also. And I says, but that's the type of movie you don't realize how much a soundtrack actually adds to a movie, right? Those war drums are unbelievable. So
yeah,
it's like you can't imagine Conan the Barbarian without that soundtrack, right? So you can't imagine even like, let's say, Star Wars with a different soundtrack without John Williams doing it, so to speak.
Right.
So, but it's something that just is in the background. You don't even notice it. You know, I started picking up on this stuff, Baz, when we watched the Dark Knight Rises, and the fight with him and Bane has no music at all. Like there's nothing. And it's almost like it gives you that really uneasy,
visceral,
weird feeling. You're like, oh my God, like I feel so empty inside right now.
Right,
you know?
right.
But it's got to be the same way with a comic too. You don't realize what goes into the lettering and the colorists and stuff like that. You know, I've seen some guys that do color, like some colorists are very very, very digital, like bright colors and stuff. And that, to me, it'll strike me as odd. Like, I don't know if I like that. It's still too computery, you know.
Yeah, my favorite guy outside of Matt Yackee, because Matt Yackee's my favorite, but my favorite, like outside of my team, is a guy named Marte Gracia, and he colors a lot of the. I think he colors either the House of M or Powers of M. I forget which one it is, but his color choices are fantastic, very cinematic, and he finds slices of light to come into the scene, and he's very consistent. So it has this graphic quality with a touch of realism, but it very, very much feels like painterly quality, even though it's 100% digital. And it's one of those things that you can just like appreciate that he sets a mood. And he's one of those guys that whatever he does, he affects it, you know?
Nice. What do you think what has changed the most in your perspective? I mean, you've been in comics for over 25 years, almost going on 30 years now.
Yeah.
What has changed within the last however many years that is different from when you started? What have you noticed?
Well, culturally, it's really different. I'll tell you, I took a big chunk of time off out of the comic industry. I was gone. The last comic that I drew, not the last one that was on the stands, but the last comic that I drew was an issue of Superman in 2003. Right. And I didn't go to any comic conventions. I didn't do anything. And then I came back and I went to my first San Diego Comic-Con in 2016. And this is after like not going for 13 years. The convention scene, I noticed, really changed, because back in the day, you used to be, as an artist, you could just show up to Artist Alley, sit down with your portfolio, some drawing stuff, and people would find you. You didn't need a sign, you didn't need any crazy prints, and you didn't need any bells and whistles. Just showing up was like what you did. And when I went to the show in 2016, everybody had these roll-up banners. Everything was like bigger, brighter, louder, and it became like trying to find a needle in a needle stack. You know, everything was just bigger and louder. So that was for conventions. As far as the business itself,
it's like a walking Instagram, right? Like when you're walking down like a walking Instagram thing. Like.
Yeah, it's super loud. And the old school, as far as the old school comics, like when I broke in, it was 91. But I met Liefeld back in 89. So I got to know, and I met Jim Lee when I was 14. I met Eric Larson when I was 14. I've known a lot of, like, Sergio Aragones, Michael Kaluta. I started going to shows when I was 14. So by the time I became a pro, I'd already known like a lot of people for like 4 years, because I did my comic show and like whatever. But it seemed a little more your hireability was based not only on your talent, it was based on if you were easy to work with, and that was about it. And it seemed like there were a lot less gatekeepers. It was basically, you're pretty good. Oh, you're a nice cat. You're a nice guy or girl. Let's see if you can do it on time. You can. You're hired. You know, now it's like, how many Instagram followers do you have? Like, what kind of influence? How can we leverage? It's like it turns it. It's just a different beast as far as like that's concerned, because there's also at the same time, like my buddies and I talk about this all the time. When I came up learning how to draw, you learned how to draw from basically, there were like 3 or 4 books that you can get, right? You got How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. You got the Bern Hogarth books. You got the 5 C's of Cinematography. You had the George Bridgman book and any Andrew Loomis if you can get your hands on it. And that was about it, right? And one of the stories I like to tell is back in, this was 2012, I had this very talented artist. She came to work for me as a storyboard artist on this show I was directing. And I said, I really love to see some of your other work, you know, not just your boards. And she brought her portfolio in, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. When did you do this? She's like, oh, I did that my junior year of high school when I was 16. And I was like, what? I was like blown away. It was like something that I couldn't have done until I was like in my late 20s. I was just like, what the hell? It's like digital painting, you know? And then I said, what year did you graduate? She was like, oh, you know, 2007. And I was like, how did you learn how to do this? She said, YouTube tutorials, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So then what I realized was there's this whole brand new crop of talent coming up that were way beyond where we were. Like I was considered like super talented. I broke in, you know, when I was a kid. So I was considered super talented, but like I couldn't do what she did. But there was YouTube and there's all these resources. And especially now, like all those books I listed, you could find those. You can find them on Amazon. You can find PDFs. You can go on YouTube and get these tutorials. So if you want to learn, you can go learn. So all of a sudden, the amount of people competing for those spots has gotten larger. So you're competing with more. So I think part of it is that the editors are looking for something of that extra too. But right now, I mean, the business is completely different, especially with, you know, what's going on with our state of the world right now.
That's absolutely freaking ridiculous, dude.
Right. And also the other thing too, if I had to talk about the content, when I collected comics and when I broke into comics, we recognized that comics were unique unto themselves. We weren't trying to make mini movies. We were trying to make badass comics. And things were loud, guns are big, the girls were extra curvy, the men were extra muscular, the action was like insane. And then you see that stuff influence movies. And then later on, comics, they try to make them these mini movies. So they subdued things. Everything became more realistic. All the conversations became more talky, coffee shop talk stuff. And it seemed like all the things that excited me were missing. And then the other factor, and this is the last one I'll make because I know I'm being long-winded, but when I was a kid, you could go to the store. When I was 16, you could go to the store, go to the stand, and on any week, you go, there's a John Byrne book, there's a Walt Simonson book, there's a Rick Leonardi book, there's a Liefeld book, there's a Jim Lee book, there's a Will Spertasio book, there's a Dale Keown book, all on the same week, on the stands at the same time. And like, dude, when you're a kid, you go, oh my damn, like I'm taking them all, you know, because they were all exciting. And now, like when I would go to my shop, number one, I always left with a trade of some sort because maybe I'm nostalgic. But the other thing is like outside of guys like Ryan Stegman and Sean Gordon Murphy, and I'm not slighting any of my fellow creators because they all work hard and everything. But as far as what piques my interest, it's a rare thing. It's like those guys, they'll go home. You know, I'll take that book. I really enjoyed McFarlane's Spawn 300. I thought that was a nice cachet of artists in there. But for the most part, like I'm bored out of my tears. Like the kind of comics I want to make feel like the comics I read. So those guys I listed, those are like it. When you saw the cover on the Indiegogo, that's how I draw, and that's how I draw my books, and everything's going to look like that. So if you like 90s stuff, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, that's cool because it's like that's your thing, man. You know, that's kind of like, I mean, who the hell wants you to reinvent yourself? People want, you know, Dan Fraga. They're gonna be like, this isn't Dan Fraga if it's all of a sudden different after so many years, you know?
Right. Well,
I try to influence your style. your art style?
I mean, I could give you a timeline on it. I would say initially the first guy I wanted to draw like was John Byrne. Like I you know, and then I found McFarlane, and I was just, well, I was blown away by it. Like there were little instances, like I liked Rick Leonardi's way of drawing girls. I liked Mike Zeck's G.I. Joe covers. There's a Frank Miller cover in particular on the cover of Dark Knight 2 that really like hit me. But like there was something, I got the McFarlane Hulk, the Wolverine with the Hulk and the claws, you know, where he's like screaming and he's got the Hulk reflected in his claws. You know the one I'm talking. I think it's like 340 or something like that. And I was blown away. Like the same thing that happened to me when I saw the Miller stuff happened to me when I saw Todd. Is I was so used to what I call the pajama versions of characters. Like when you see Spider-Man, it's always that running Spider-Man spinning a web at you, and you know the one that's on Band-Aids and on like stuff. Or the Batman always looked like the pajama Batman, or the one you saw at the top when you got a Taco Bell cup and it had Batman on it. It had this sort of generic look. So when I saw the Hulk look the way he looked and Wolverine looked the way he looked, it really made me think like, shit, I can do things the way I want to. Like I don't have to like try to draw like this way. And then of course, like when I found out McFarlane's influences, I was like, who's Art Adams? Who's Michael Golden? And then when I saw Art Adams, I was blown away. And I'm like, who does he look at? And I'm like, who's Walt Simonson? Who's Barry Smith? And it ended up becoming like a rabbit hole. But if I was to like say now, like the guys like now that still, like I always say DNA. That's the thing. I go, who's in my DNA? It would be McFarlane, Stephen Platt, and Sam Keith. And all kind of tied down with some Art Adams sensibilities. It's like that craziness sort of tied down slightly.
Yeah, I was looking at your stuff today, your art today, and I was like, that's Stephen Platt there. I see.
Oh yeah,
there. Yeah.
Steve's a friend, and he was a major influence for sure.
You got a question there, buddy? Hold on a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Besides Stan Lee making an appearance in every MCU movie, what are your thoughts on why Steve Ditko doesn't get the same praise as Stan Lee?
That's a great question, Donnie Dash 54. I think it's a matter of two factors. Number one, Stan is big, right? He's loud. He's in your face. How you doing, true believer? Yeah. And you can't not notice Stan. So he's a great showman. That's number one. Guys like Jack and Steve, Jack was a little more reserved, and then Ditko himself was very reserved. There's maybe like 2 known photographs of the guy, and you know he didn't go out much, and he had a lot of ideologies. I think he was big time into Ayn Rand and like that sort of stuff. So he was very low key and very subdued and very backseat. So I think that has something to do with it. So I think it's twofold. I think the loud Stan and the quiet Steve, if that's the best way to explain it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And me and Baz have this thing with Bill Finger not getting his due for many years. With
that's a whole different story. That's Bob Kane being a piece of shit.
TV when I watched that Hulu documentary.
Yeah, that's just Bob Kane being a piece of shit. Dick Sprang and Bill Finger, that's all them. I mean, this is how crazy it is. If you want to do a little bit of callback to McFarlane, in '89, Bob Kane was commissioned to do some prints in conjunction with the Tim Burton movie, and they did these Bob Kane, creator of Batman prints. 2 of the 4 drawings, he traced McFarlane drawings.
What?
He traced them. Look it up, Bob Kane, McFarlane, and you put them side by side. And he basically took stuff that Todd had done in Batman Year 2 and traced them and did his Bob Kane thing to him. But like that's Bob Kane in a nutshell.
He probably didn't even trace them himself. He probably hired somebody.
Yeah, probably. That person's my ghost. That's my ghost. That was what we used to say. Oh, Bill Finger was my ghost. Yeah, but he created your characters as my ghost. So it's Bob Kane. That was how he used to justify things. And if you guys want to see like a very tense train wreck shit show, look up Comic Greats with Stan Lee and Bob Kane. Stan Lee interviews Bob Kane, and you can tell these guys do not like each other. And so there's this like palpable tension, and it's so fun to watch.
Because they're so much like each other. That's why.
Oh no, Stan! I would say Stan. At least you can tell he's kind of like a circus barker. Hey you, hey, you know. Bob is like, I'm the best. I'm Bob Kane. Respect me. You know, it was like this.
He was fucking Robin Leach.
Right.
Kyle here says that he worked for Brian Halbert at Anomaly, and he spoke very highly of you.
Yeah, Anomaly's amazing. How you doing, Kyle? Yeah, Brian and I go back, man. Anomaly has blown my mind. I don't know if you guys have seen that stuff, but it's like a AR comic book, like it's augmented reality, and it's like that's an amazing thing those guys did. State of the art. That's pretty cool. So Kyle's a Cali dude then, if he was working with Brian. Yeah, Brian's good people. Brian changed the game. In fact, back he's a very accomplished artist and really pushes the envelope when it comes to how you can create artwork. But one of the things he did is he revolutionized computer color, right? Like you had these sort of stages of computer color. You had Ollie Optics, who were the first. They did Akira back in '88, and they did it on this thing called a Cod Barrett. Then you had Laverne come in with Hail Zaid. You had Laverne come in, and he did his thing. They were called Digital Chameleon. And then Rob started Extreme Color. Jim started Wildstorm Color. And then Mark hired Brian Haberlin, and Haberlin was doing things with Photoshop that none of us could figure out. Like it just, glass looked like glass, metal looked like metal, hair looked like hair. His color choices were like bananas. So he really, really changed the game. Oh, that's cool. He's in the toy industry. Hit me up, dude. I'm trying to figure out, like I got a sculptor and we're trying to figure out how to do some Black Flag stuff. So yeah, definitely feel free to hit me up. I'm easy to find on Facebook.
Well, now that we're friends and I'm friends with Kyle. Kyle's my buddy.
Yeah. Cool.
Our buddy from, Cali. So
yeah, dope. That's great, man. I love it.
All right. So I want to address the elephant that's in the room right now. Okay. Last night at about 4 a.m, I get home from work because I work 12 to 8 now, right? With this whole COVID nonsense going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in bed and I'm scrolling through a conversation that Baz is in, that you were in when I guess you had announced that you were now part of ComicsGate. Yeah. And it was like a whole bunch of creators like going at each other. And I'm sitting there in bed watching this, like just reading and going, I feel like, excuse me, I feel like a little kid watching both of their parents that they kind of idolize argue.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I just like
it was incredible, man.
On the thread looking at Eric Larson and Dan Fraga and like 3 or 4 other guys in there going at it, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was the many different stages of ComicsGate, right? So I've known my pal Ethan for a long time. In fact, I drew a cover for Cyberfrog back in '96. He drew me into an issue of Cyberfrog back in the 90s. I'm like rapping, right? And I'm wearing a Black Flag hat and everything. So Ethan and I go back 25 years. ComicsGate happened, and I heard all the crazy talk. They're a hate group. They're a bunch of this and that and the other. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like Ethan at all. Like Ethan's
me and Baz, when we've gotten confronted with that too, me and Baz have a really good Ethan Van Sciver story. He was one of the nicest guys we've ever met in the industry.
Yeah.
And he actually refunded me. Like I paid for a sketch from him and he couldn't get it done in time. And I had to leave. My wife had a car outside and he was like, yo, here's your money back. Don't worry about it. The next con that you see me at, remind me. And I was like, nobody does this.
Right. Right. Awesome. Yeah. So, but this was like 2017.
Right.
He invited me to come on his show. And I had some friends go, dude, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm like, why? And they're like, it's a hate group. I'm like, okay. Like you kind of go, you want to avoid that, right? Because it's you don't want that quote unquote stink on you, right? Yeah. but I kept thinking like that's my dude. Like why, whatever. So I continue to keep working, doing what I do because I was working at Mattel at the time, directing cartoons for toys, and I forget when it was. It was recently this year that I just started seeing a lot of people in the way they were kind of coming at ComicsGate, and a lot of the aspects of it that were I felt fundamentally wrong. Like I feel like seeing an attack like on J. Scott Campbell where they say you deserve no rights and no dignity for drawing the way you do. You should have your hands broken. I'm like, who would say that shit? Like that's not cool. And
I don't know how comics got invaded with people like this. I don't understand.
Right. So
I just don't understand.
The movies. That's why they make billions of dollars now.
I don't know what the source of it is. And then, so I'm like, yeah, like that sucks that someone can't just draw the way they draw without like having somebody like slinging vitriol at them, right? And in the interim, I also did a lot of deep reading about ComicsGate and the history of it, and like where the attacks were, where the accusations were, following up, asking questions. And then I realized, it's not a hate group. It just seems like it's being maligned, and I'm not really understanding why there's that people being maligned. So I started going on Ethan's show. A CG friendly is what you would call me, but not out and out saying I'm ComicsGate. And then it was like 2 weeks ago, I was on Twitter. Some guy was saying that Ethan is scammed his audience because he only paid this much to make his comic and he made this much money, therefore he's a bad man. And I said, that's kind of how business works. Like if I go and buy a steak for $30, the restaurant didn't give me a $30 steak. They gave me $30 steak service and all that, and they had a markup. That's how business works. And the guy said, "Oh no," and and I said, I kept saying, "Dude, we're not paying for the staples and paper. We're paying for what's in the staples and paper, which I feel like was completely worth my money and completely worth the wait." And then the guy proceeded to call me a cuck, a motherfucker, a has-been. And then some other people dogpiled and said, "You're just an imitation piece of dog shit. Rob Liefeld's dog shit, and you're imitation dog shit." Right? And they were like lacing me up, and I was like, all I said was I thought I got my money's worth. Like, where is this coming from? And then the guy's like, "Who are you to even have any sort of expertise on what is good and what isn't?" And I'm like, well, I've worked in the printing business. I've worked in the comic business. I have this experience. And the guy just kept lacing into me. And I said, you know what? I'm ComicsGate. I'm ComicsGate, and I'm going to thank you because you literally pushed me over. And then once I said that, the Whisper Networks. Yeah. Whisper Networks. I started getting calls from other professionals. "Hey, dude, I heard you were ComicsGate, man. What the hell? You're not hateful." I'm like, it's not a hate group. Nah, I keep having to say that. I keep going. You've known me. Like some of these people, like Art Adams. I've known Art Adams since I was 14. I've known Eric Larson since I was 14. They have known me for 33 years. Have I ever displayed any sort of hate, racism, misogyny, homophobia in the entire time? Right. No. So wouldn't you say, "Hey, why are you over there?" Not, "I'm judging you." Okay. Yeah, that was literally what my longtime friend Art Adams said. "I'm judging you." Eric Larson said something to the effect of, "I can't get down with that. Goodbye," and unfriended me. Yeah, and I saw the other thread. Yeah. So, but okay. So sorry, I have to rewind a little bit. So then one of my friends said, "I can't really be involved with you. Please take any sort of stuff we've done together that you might have on your show coming up, and I'd like to take my name out of the game. But I'd also I think it behooves you to go and tell everybody that you've interacted with that you're involved with ComicsGate, so they can decide if they want to be involved with you based on your new standing. And I was like, huh. And like I woke up like the next morning, and I was pissed off. I was pissed because I felt like, you want me to like reach out to everybody and talk to them like I have a disease or something, you
That's
know?
crazy, man.
So then I made a video kind of trying to explain what happened and what made me say, no, I'm ComicsGate. Like, these are the things I believe in. I believe ComicsGate is the fans. I believe in respecting the fans. I believe in respecting their point of view. I'm against an agenda that is there to only, you know, catch headlines or pander to an audience in an insulting way. So those are things I'm already all about. And then I was mad. So then I started getting more calls and emails, and I found I was spending a major portion of my day. This is why, guys. Not everything's cool. This is why. And then on one of them, and this was the morning of April Fool's of all mornings, I was like, you know what, man? I'm just done. I'm just gonna write like I guess a press release. It's not really a press release, but you would call it that. Yeah. Like, because I keep getting asked, this is why, and this is it. And I made my statement, and I thought it would just be kind of like one of those, like, oh, okay. And going back to that list, like I did with the comic book artists earlier, I encountered 3 different types of people. I encountered the ones that said, fuck you, I'm never talking to you again. I thought you were cool. You fooled me all this time. Okay. Like, wow. All right.
What I'm noticing is when I had asked Baz more about ComicsGate, because like I've been kind of following from the outside, dipping my toe in here and there.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, you know, ComicsGate is going to, like anything else in the world, is going to have people in it that your ideals aren't going to align with anyway. You're always going to have fractions of people no matter where you go. Like, I have a lot of my friends are liberals.
Yep.
And I have some conservative friends. I fall kind of a little bit more on the right side, but me and my liberal friends are still friends. Like, I run circles of people. It's just like,
well,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't run with hate groups, but I'm sure if you had like 100,000 liberals and 100,000 conservatives, chances are there's going to be a couple of hundred assholes in both of those groups.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, I'll get back to the 3 type of people, but I think one of the biggest problems that ComicsGate faces right now is that from the outside, and I'm talking about not the fans, because the fans are CG. From the outside, ComicsGate is viewed as one entity. It's a monolith. It's one thing, and some stuff happened a few years back, and therefore that is what they are. But once you're in ComicsGate, you realize there's guys like Zaid Comics, and there's guys like Adam Post and Ethan Van Sciver and John Malin and Cecil, and it's made up and comprised of all these individuals that all love making comics. They all have different personalities, different values. There's liberals, there's conservatives. I'm the opposite of you. I'm middle, slightly left-leaning. You know what I mean? I still have plenty of stuff I agree with on the right, but right. I'm middle left leaning. We've got guys that voted for Obama. We have you know, black, Hispanic, female, male, trans, gay.
Exactly. It's like
literally it's the melting pot, and the thing that unites us is our love for our fans and our love for creating comic books without any sort of censorship. We get to be pure. So going back to the 3 types of people, I got the ones that literally slammed the door in my face, like a Eric Larson, like just, yep, bye, right? And I had personal friends do the same thing. Bro, I thought you were cool, slam. Then there's the second type who call me up. Like, I had a buddy who texted me first, bro, is this an April Fool's joke?
Yeah.
And not ring. Nah, man, it's not, man. What? Okay, talk to me, man. That was the second type, is the talk to me, man. Like, tell me what's going on. Why would you, and then I go, listen, I don't believe it's a hate group. I've seen the evidence. I've also am a thinking man. I know that out there's a crazy culture war going on. I know a lot of people don't want to say that, but there is a culture war. and they want to shut down the kind of comics we like to make, and they want to put labels on those kind of comics. They want to call J. Scott Campbell I guess I can't say it on YouTube, a PDF file, and a misogynist because of the way he draws. And I know Jeff. I've known Jeff since we were teenagers. He loves his family. He's a family man. He's a good man. But they try to throw that stink on him.
I don't understand this.
That's really the worst thing you could call anybody.
Right. It's culture war, bro. It's culture war.
I don't understand the culture wars, because to me, it's like, I know a lot of people on that consider themselves social justice warriors throw the most shade.
Right. And that's why I will not call those types of people a social justice warrior. Justice is justice first and foremost.
There is no social justice.
Right.
Justice.
Justice is justice, right? And they don't want justice. They want you to subscribe to their point of view or else. Okay.
But it's also a checklist mentality too, though. You could say, yeah, I'm left leaning and I'm a social justice warrior and I believe all this, but I have a gun in my house, or I believe all this, but I believe this one thing out of a list of 10 things, and you're out. You're out of
completely. Yeah. So I'm opposed to that. Full stop. That there's that. But then the third kind of person is what I call, as you know, in hip hop, the ride or dies. Right? Like, yo, man, this is cool, man. I can't wait for your book. Or hey, dude, I know you. I know you're doing this because you believe in it. I believe in you, bro. Do it. You know, those are the three kinds of people. So I've encountered that. But talking about the elephant in the room, like you were saying, it got so crazy that I stopped looking at it. I literally, I haven't looked at it in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And anybody that wanted to reach out to me did. I've lost, this is the crazy thing. I lost, I don't know, maybe 200 Facebook friends over it. But I'm okay with that. Like, this is a thing that I said to somebody, because they kept asking me, don't you think you shot yourself in the foot? Don't you think you shot yourself in the foot? I said, no, man. First off, I believe in ComicsGate so much that I'm willing to walk through the fire for it, knowing what the outside's perception is, because I am a representation of the antithesis of what they think it is, because I am not hateful. I'm not any of those things. And I think that represents a threat to those that want to call it that, because I am not those things.
Right.
Okay. I'm willing to walk through those things for that reason. Two, sure, I lost those friends, and I lost a lot of those friends, but I also consider that sort of like, if you really cared about me, we would have had a discussion.
Yeah.
If you were really my friend, like you're acting like you were, we would have had a discussion. Those people I had a discussion with, they all stayed around because we talked.
I've noticed like the one of the dudes in the thread, and I don't remember his name, but he was saying like stuff like that ComicsGate is basically anybody who's against any type of diversity in comics.
That's not true.
And I'm sitting here scratching my head going, like, from an total outsider.
Yeah.
Ethan created Jessica Cruz. I didn't even know that. And then I found that out and I was like, oh shit. And while I was reading the comic that she was in or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, it's more forced. We don't like things just changing.
That's what it is.
For the sake of checking a box. It's like, if I have a corporation, now I'm being forced to only hire certain types of people because I have to have a checklist of demographics I have to fill.
Yeah, you're talking about affirmative action, right? You know,
right? Like that type of stuff, like even the hires, but it's not just minority based. It's, do you have women writing? Do you have?
I think it's worse. I think it's much worse than that, because here's the thing, man. They could still have that checklist, but the way in which they're doing it lacks authenticity. Okay,
you're never woke enough.
Right. Well, but it lacks authenticity. Like, you see a character like Storm, you see a character like North Star. North Star was one of the first characters to come out as gay. That didn't feel unnatural. It felt okay, you know? Yeah. But when you go this, and I mean, obviously it was a hot topic a week and a half ago, but when you say, oh, this is Snowflake and they're non-binary and they're they, them, and this is this is your typical jock named Safe Space, and it's because he can't do this thing. And they turn them into these sort of like hardcore stereotypes in a way that they're kind of like, the way I described it was like blackface. Like, it was so
like it's insulting to the people that you're trying to.
That's exactly it.
Like, why are you pandering? Make it natural. No one gave a shit. I say this all the time. When Storm beat Cyclops to take over the X-Men without her powers, no one gave a shit because she was awesome.
Right.
You know?
Right. And it didn't feel forced. Or the other thing I'm a big fan of, I do like comics with messages, because when I was a kid, those are the lessons I got that kind of taught me how to treat people, you know, how to be responsible for your actions. Things like that. Guys like Stan and Jack did it well. Guys like Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil did it well, and they had topical issues. But the wokies like to say, well, comics were ran by white men and blah, blah, blah. That may be the case, but there wasn't like full exclusion. You had all kinds of female writers and editors and artists that were working. They just weren't attracted to the job. It's not like they were kept out. That wasn't part of the thing for a girl to go, I want to be a comic book artist. It just wasn't it. And it wasn't that they were kept out. So it's like this sort of misnomer piece of evidence that they try to use. And anyway, ComicsGate is not a hate group.
That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have haters. There might be people in there that are, you know, have their both feet in the pool of hate, but that's going to be in any walk of life.
Correct.
Well, there's been like a war against the actual fans, coming from the media, coming from comic creators. If we don't like a certain product or a certain creative decision that they make, that we're an ist or a phobe or a sexist or a homophobe.
Right.
So that's basically what ComicsGate is just fans that are getting tired of being insulted.
Right. Well, that's absolutely right. There's nobody there to buy those books, and you get creators out there. I'm not going to name names because this is my policy. I don't call names, and I'm doing my best not to name names unless it's like very specific to myself. But there's creators out there that are saying, if you voted for Trump, fuck you, don't read my book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but you know what? If I'm in the business to create something for you, I don't give two shits what you do. I want you to like my book, the end. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And
like I'm hanging out drinking beers with you and we're like, you know,
right. But
consumer, like that's
fans first, man. It's fans first. Respect your fans and don't try to impose. You don't overimpose ideologies on top of them. And when they don't receive it, that's on you. That's not on the fan. You can't blame a fan for not liking your shit.
I'm sure.
Own your mess.
When I was walking through New York Comic Con, I'm sure he wouldn't care. But when I was a kid, like, you know, when you were once a kid and looking at, like, you know, all the guys you were surrounded by, Eric Larson was my favorite Spider-Man artist because that's when I started reading Spider-Man.
He's fantastic. I have the omnibus right there. I'm a huge Eric Larson fan.
Right. And then when Savage Dragon came out, that was like my favorite Image comic for a while. Yeah. And I saw him. I was talking to Billy. I was talking to Billy Tucci, and we were hanging out. Like, we know Billy. I mean, I was just dead up. My wife, we were talking to Billy, and I'm looking across, and I see, I'm like, in my head, as I'm talking to Billy, I'm like, there's Eric Larson. Oh my God, there he is. And then I thought about all these other things that I've been reading and hearing and seeing, and maybe I should have just judged for myself, but I went, you know what?
Don't meet your hero.
I'm not gonna go up to him. Like,
he's one of the ones. Hero-wise, don't meet him.
Buying his stuff, and I'm not even any of those things.
Right.
But from what I'm seeing, it's that if you're not of the same mentality, there's the door.
Right. There's no. That's the crazy thing is like all of this talk of inclusiveness, all of this talk of anti-prejudiceness, all this talk about anti-bigotry. Those people that like slam the door in my face. It just was ironic to me. It was, you didn't hear me out. You judged me for thinking I had opinion outside of yours. That's bigotry. That's prejudice. All the things that you want to say. And you could say, I'm intolerant to intolerance. Name a single thing that I did as an individual that is intolerant. name it. And you could say siding with those guys. And then I would say, use my 30 years that you've known me and ask, why would I side with hate? Perhaps I don't believe I'm siding with hate. And then you have to ask, why don't I believe it? And then I'll give you the laundry list. But apparently, there's a lot of hypocrisy out there.
So this is related here. This is in the news the past 2 days. The redesign for America Chavez. And
I don't know the character, but I think she's cool looking.
They're complaining that she's over sexualized because she has a.
You know what? All you have to do as an art director on this thing, take the shine off the butt. The end. That's all it is. It's the shine on the butt. It's just the shine.
Well, this is what I don't understand, right? Like from these type of people.
Yeah.
And what do you mean these people? Look, this is just from that group that wants to fight against the over-sexualization of
wokies, man. And what I say the thing that they spew upon us is called slag. Wokie slag. I have a wokie slag shield that was given to me, and they will not get me.
I look at that and I go, aren't we supposed to be celebrating the beauty that is the female form? Like, I'll never be a female, so I can admire it because I think it's wonderful. So it should be celebrated. And like, yes, women that look like that, and there are a lot of women that look like that in this. I work outdoors all the time in sanitation in New York, and I see a lot of
living in Miami. The average woman looks like that.
I was just in Miami 3 weeks ago, so yeah.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you want to embrace that and be like, yeah, this is what we were talking about, I think, last week, is that like the striving to be, looking at a comic book and not wanting to necessarily see yourself. We were talking about the heavy set African girl that's in this new series with Snowflake and all that.
Yeah, Trailblazer.
If she's a cool character,
doesn't matter.
It's a cool character. But I don't want to also see the 5'7" balding guy.
Right. Right. Well, don't you understand that you're not appreciating the female form. You are doling out a salacious male gaze. And how dare you? You know what I'm saying? That's what it boils down to. Your appreciation is a sexual one, and you're being deviant in your desires. That's how they're judging you.
When we meet people, to those people, I would say, when you meet somebody at a bar, the first thing you notice is what they look like.
Correct.
Carry themselves. That's it. That's how you have to lure them in at first. Then you get to know them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know what I was told early on? I forget which one of the Image founders told me this. They said, if you want your book to be successful, realize your audience, know that you want to draw a girl that a girl either wants to be, or a girl that a guy wants to be with, and you want to draw the guy to be an aspirational guy that the guy wants to be, and you want to draw that guy in a way that a girl would be attracted to him. That way you are drawing an aspirational version of something. Right? Well, the wokies are completely opposed to that, as if it was oppressive, and it's not. You know what?
If you're a lazy son of a bitch.
You know what, dude? I don't care. Like, here's the thing. I'm almost 47 years old. I have 4 kids. I have my beautiful wife who loves me. I recently lost 60 pounds, and it had nothing to do with wanting to get in shape. It had everything to do with wanting to live longer. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has 100% to do with that. And when I was, overweight, I just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm like, yo, if I inspire some kid to go, I want to go work out, or I inspire a young lady to go, I want to, obviously we want to write them in a way that they're aspirational as well.
Well, that's just it. I think it's twofold. I had this conversation with a friend of mine a while back when we first became friends. And I said to him, sometimes I think when I make decisions in life, I need decision. What would Captain America do? What would Batman do? What would Batman do? Situation, what would Cap do? And he's like, you need to realize, his advice was, what would Bob do in this situation? Don't worry about these fictional characters. Be you and understand what you would do. I had answered him and said, you know what? Sometimes
hold on a second, buddy. I'm sorry. My son is like trying.
He's got his own Grayson.
No. He said, my boy's right here. Oh, that's all he needed to hear was his name.
Uh-oh. Happy birthday, Grayson.
Happy birthday, Grayson.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, man. That's how old are you? What, 9? Man, that's awesome. My daughter's turning 9 next month. So
There
that's
you
a
go.
great age.
9 next month.
That's a great age, man.
So
sorry about that. You were saying he's got no filter. He's 6.
He said, I had said back to my answer back to him was, well, sometimes Rob just doesn't know what to do. Sometimes Rob isn't strong enough. So when I'm in the gym and I'm going for that last push up, I'm like thinking of Cap, like what would Cap do? He wouldn't fail. He would give you that last push up.
Right.
When making a decision on cutting somebody off or flipping them the finger, maybe it's better to be even-headed and even-keeled, kind of like the way a hero would be, and to rise above the bullshit. So I think it comes in 2 folds. When you're hitting the gym or trying to lose weight or trying to live longer and all that, we get our inspiration from these heroes and the way they're written, but we also want to aspire to look. Everyone has that He-Man fantasy. You know what I'm saying? Every guy wants to be Conan whipping the sword around. Every time you have you unwrap.
There we are.
A Christmas
present. I lost Rob for a second.
Every time when you wrap up a bunch.
Can see you. Can you see
there
Rob?
We are.
Yeah, okay. I got it. Every time you're done wrapping up your Christmas stuff and you have that long tube, everyone's twirling that shit around like they're Darth Maul or Luke Skywalker. Everyone wants to be that character, these otherworldly grand things. So I think the whole idea of trying to shut that down and say that you're just a misogynist is just complete horseshit.
Yeah,
it's going against everything.
That's the other thing too. There's so much going on, and that's why I say there's so much going on where when I was a kid, we had aspirations to be those heroes, not just based on their muscles or their powers or whatever. We based it on the fact that they could have worn the victim coat like it was the best thing ever. I'm a victim. And a lot of these new characters play victims, and they're not empowered. And that's another thing. It's like perhaps it's a different style of writing or a different point of view. But I like my heroes to say I am not a victim,
right? And
stand up for themselves and show integrity, and obviously they're all human. Like we said earlier with Peter Parker, he went for doing the wrong thing. He went to go make a fast buck, and it turns out that he needed to have more responsibility with his powers. And these are life lessons. That's why Spider-Man's my favorite character of all characters, is because I saw myself in him. I was a skinny kid, get my ass beat all the time because I was little, and and I saw Peter Parker, and I looked up to Peter Parker as someone who had restraint. He had these powers, and he didn't knock out Flash Thompson. He didn't do the things he could have done because he knew what was right and wrong.
Right. Baz, what do you normally say about these people that exchange in that that victimhood? You have a saying for it, or a thing you say that, like, they use it as like a currency or something, like their whole thing is attached to being a victim or something like that?
I don't remember. I don't know. Victimhood Klaus? I don't know.
I know what you mean. It's like a social currency. Like, there's I've learned ever since I've come to ComicsGate. I've learned so many concepts and words that I never considered before ComicsGate, like virtue signaling, and like things like that, where I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's what you were looking for.
I used to think
virtue signaling.
Yeah, and then I was also understand what a lot of these things, man. I gotta kiss my 1-year-old. It's bedtime. Hold on a second, guys.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Hi, baby.
Oh wow.
Hi, sweet. Yeah, it's my big girl. She's saying hi.
Little Fraga.
She's my big girl. Yeah.
Fraga poof.
Oh my god.
You have a good night, sweetie. I love you.
All right.
Bye.
Night, big girl.
On
Love you.
Well, it's like you play the moral superior, so then you gain clout and reputation, and therefore you bury this person. You're better than that person, so you jump up on the ladder, and
they use them. They basically weaponize, like, the thing I'm learning is there's like a weaponization of things, right? Like
Yes.
you can. Here's the thing, man. Like I said, I don't consider myself any of the accusations that people ComicsGate as being, but it's I call it a weaponization because let's say, like I said about Snowflake and Safe Space when I initially said I'm opposed to Snowflake, and I feel like they're an insult to my trans, non-binary, LGBT, QAI friends. And I said I feel like it's blackface. Wow, you and racist, because they latched on to that I mentioned the word trans and LGBT, and I mentioned the word blackface in a sentence. They removed all context.
Yep.
What I was saying is what you're doing is an insult, much like what has been done to our African American brothers and sisters. That's what I'm saying. But you turned it into that I'm transphobic, homophobic, and racist.
Right.
And the second they do that, you instantly have to be on the defensive if you fall into their trap, because it's literally a trap. That wokey slag is this soup that they spew on you. And like I said, I got my shield; it just drips right off it. And they try to do that, and then if you could go right into defense. Oh, I'm not racist. You go into I've got black friends. That's what all racists say. I'm not transphobic. I know work with people, and like you start making excuses, and they go typical of someone who making excuses, and you literally fall into that slaggy syrup where you turn into an asshole because you get so frustrated with that thing. And I won't fall into it because I know I'm not. And you can use all the wokey slag you want because I know I'm not. And you're trying so hard.
They'll just keep repeating the lie, though. That's like
right. It doesn't matter, though, man. It doesn't matter. What keeps coming up
is like with Ethan. Like Ethan had told somebody. I guess this happened a few years ago. He was in an argument with somebody, and I guess he told the guy, "Go kill yourself" or something.
Yeah, which is it's a saying.
It's a saying. I used to say that growing up to everybody. Why don't you go kill yourself? Go fuck your mother. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not serious.
Go like, fuck yourself. Go kill yourself. Go jump off a fucking bridge. Go play in the traffic.
Yeah. Oh, screw you and your whole generation. I mean, that's horrible, right?
Imagine if they were a cowboy and you said "fuck you" and the horse you rode in on, and they're like, "Oh my god."
So the guy, he comes back with, "Oh, I'm suicidal. How can you say that to me?"
Weaponizing.
Yeah,
weaponizing. And then Ethan apologizes, and the guy goes, "I don't accept your apology," which then leaves Ethan standing there in the wind, and you just go, "Oh, you straight up weaponized your shit."
What's funny is that on that same thread, Baz, the guy was like saying, "Oh, you guys said just that, what you guys just said," and then there was the Ethan apologized thing, and then if the guy was found out to have lied. The guy said that he was telling suicidal people to kill themselves, but that wasn't the case at all. So the guy was just characterizing what was even said and just making shit up, and it's like anything that just conforms to the narrative, Okay.
But people repeat that story.
I'm putting this up real quick, guys. We got a donation from Maria again. Zevlin, you are awesome. Bam, bam.
Bam, bam,
bam, bam, bam.
Bam.
Okay, guys, we got to talk about
this. You guys Emerald fans? Bam! Happy bam birthday!
Bam, 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 go back.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you.
Okay, real quick. This Mike Wellman character from Atomic Basement Comics in California.
Yeah.
Threatening to punch Ethan at a convention and to attack him physically is the comedy of the week so far. What do you guys think about that? Did you see that thread, Rob?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh my god.
Here's the thing, man. This is a pickle for me, right? And I'll tell you why. Mike, the shop I used to shop at in California was Mike's shop. Okay, wow. and I know Mike, and I like Mike, and I'm wondering where he's coming from on this stuff. You know, that's the thing. It's like I know Ethan, I know Mike, and I'm going, yo, Mike, like I don't even know what he's doing, like because
Was he drinking?
I don't know because he's continuing on it, and he's saying, and this is one of the things that I have trouble with. Like I said earlier, and I don't really talk politics, but I'll just talk conceptually the things I have a problem with. I'm left leaning. Okay. I don't care who you voted for. That's how I feel. Okay. I literally don't care who you voted for. I just care that you exercised your right as an American citizen. If you voted, you exercised your right. When someone says in regard to like the Dilbert guy, Scott Adams, that guy should have his royalties taken away and his rights taken away because he supported Trump. You're a fucking asshole. You're a fucking asshole.
These people
I don't
are
care.
advocating for the dystopian society they think they're trying to fight against.
Right. And when I read some of what Mike was saying, the I want to beat your ass and all that stuff, I'm like, Mike, dude, that's some schoolyard shit. That's what I'm thinking in my head. And then did you vote for Trump? You know, did you vote for Trump? I'm going to beat your ass for supporting Trump. I'm like, I can't support that sort of line of thought. That's not who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not going to bash Mike other than to say, dude, I think it's a lapse of judgment to be going out there like that. You can feel that way, but you don't go out saying you didn't vote for my candidate. You fucked up this world. I put it on you. I'm going to beat your ass next time I see you. You can't threaten people like that. It's
so ridiculous.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look. But I'll tell you what. Everybody knows Mike Wellman's name now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I don't know, man. That whole idea of trying to like politicize literally everything. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like I kind of I escape the Fox News and the CNN and all that shit by trying to go into the realm of comics and trying to go into like certain movies. Like I don't mind like if political stuff is in it, like it's just part of life too. I get that. But when it becomes the forefront, it's not like in the old school X-Men comics, a lot of people were like, oh, but those were always about rights and equal rights. And it's like, yeah, but that was the backdrop. It was like, that was the setting. And these are the characters were in the front and the characters were their own problems and everything else. It wasn't like, well, the comic is going to have all this woke shit and politicization of stuff up front, and the characters are just kind of in the background and secondary, or just living in.
They're supporting the agenda versus the agenda being something that they're in.
Right.
You know, like you look at Days of Future Past, and that the sort of oppression of the mutant, right? Like that felt natural. It felt good, and I felt like I got a lesson. I knew oppression was wrong based on that story alone. And it was filled with characters of diversity that felt natural, and I felt a kinship with all of them, right? So there's that. But, like, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, guys like John Byrne, incredible craftsman. Guys like Terry Austin, incredible craftsman. That's another guy. Like, if anybody wants to know who the father of the Image style is, you can probably lock it down to one guy, and you would go, who? And I want to say it's Art Adams, but in fact, it's Terry Austin. Terry Austin is the common denominator when you look at John Byrne, you look at Terry Austin, or Art Adams, you look at Rick Leonardi. Terry Austin and his magic touch is basically the guy who inspired the generation that became Image Comics, who were the guys that inspire guys like me. And, you know, touching upon the idea, like one of the things that I've heard regarding ComicsGate, and I've heard yeses and nos. I've talked to Rob Liefeld about it. Rob and I still talk. You know, he's not a fan of ComicsGate, but he's still my friend. And, you know, we try to talk about certain things, and he doesn't believe that ComicsGate is anything like Image. And obviously I can say, no, they're not. They're not 7 guys who jump ship. And, you know, you don't want a 1-for-1. It's not. But as far as people that are taking the wheel and driving the car somewhere else, it certainly is.
Independent,
it absolutely
kind of creator owned.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is not 1-for-1. It has very similar ideologies, which is freedom.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. You know, I did an interview. I'm going to be airing it on my Couch Doodles channel this month in 2 parts. It's going to be called Todd McFarlane's Rules of Success. I had a 2-hour interview with Todd McFarlane. And one of my questions that I ask my guests is, can you describe yourself with one word? If so, what is that word? And without skipping a beat, Todd said free. And that was also a contributing factor to me coming over to CG. And what I realized, like, Jim Lee is a friend of mine. I've known Jim since I was 14 years old also. But I also realized, like, someone as admirable and as talented and wonderful as Jim Lee, I'm wearing his shirt. I'm looking at my Jim Lee XXL right there. He's not free. He can't say what he wants. He is the publisher of DC Comics. So he better watch what he says. He better watch what he does. He better do a certain thing. He can't do things outside of a certain thing. That's not freedom, right? You know, the people that turn their backs on me, they're not free because they're subscribing to their fear. Ooh, if I'm okay with Dan, then I'm okay with hate. Not even like integrating or thinking about where I'm coming from and talking to me about it. Their fear enslaves them. So ComicsGate to me is about freedom. I can, you know, like I said earlier, when that guy said I shot myself in the foot. Number one, I don't mind losing those friends because if they were going to jump ship that quickly, oh well. Number two, you'll never work in mainstream comics again. Okay. All I care about is drawing the things I want to draw. Right? Spider-Man's my favorite character of all time. But if you're telling me that I have to draw a Spider-Man that has all kinds of retroactive continuity, they call it retcon. If it's got all this retcon in it and it's got some sort of wokey agenda, I don't want to do it.
Not that thing anymore.
Right. It's not what I got into it for. I want to draw me some Spider-Man fighting the Sinister Six with high stakes, with Aunt May hanging over a fire pit. You know, I want to draw that shit. You know, I want to draw the stuff that excites me. And when it comes to Black Flag, I get to draw my characters the way I want to draw them. Obviously, I have a message in my book. It's not an over-your-head message. It's not a politicized message. It's a personal message that I feel, but I have the freedom to do it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is what's exciting about ComicsGate. That excites me the most. And it excites me that I really feel like my interests and the fans' interests together as CG are in full alignment. And hate and bigotry and all that other bullshit have no part. Zero.
That's freaking awesome. All right, last question of the night before we wind this down. This is, you know, he's asked this a few times. Donnie Das, what Jim Lee art do you like more, Marvel or DC?
I will be as specific as I possibly can. X-Men 271, 272. Oh, sorry. Let's go like this. 268, 269, 270, 271, 272. 275 is cool when they went to the Shi'ar Galaxy. I thought X-Men 1 was okay, but I kind of left the Jim Lee train before he even went to Image. I know some people are like, he's a god. He is. He's one of the best. He's not my favorite, but he's one of the best. But Extinction Agenda and the whole Savage Land stuff and the Captain America, Wolverine, Black Widow, that's it. That's it. That you want my answer? That's it.
Yeah, me and Baz are hardcore DC guys. We like Marvel too. Not words in your mouth, Baz, but I like Jim Lee on the X-Men. And I know he's been doing Batman for mad long now, and everyone's on hot dick lately. This comes up every week.
Look at this thing, dude. Have you seen this?
No, what's that? Oh my
God. I got to get a regular size comic just to show you how big it is, because it's hard to see. Like even when you look at me next to it, you go, "Oh, Fraga's just a little dude, right?" But hold on, let me grab a comic and I'll put an actual comic book next to it. This is the Jim Lee XXL, X-Men XXL Jim Lee. This is a comic book next to it.
Holy shit!
Okay, it's like 1, 2.5, 3, 4.5 comics. Okay, or no, that's 5 comics worth. The 2 halves make a whole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, half, 5 comics big, and it's a reproduction of all of his X-Men except for the Extinction Agenda issues, which really bums me out because that's my favorite shit. But that Captain America stuff's in here, all the Mandarin stuff's in here, and it's freaking massive, dude. You need it needs its own table. I have like a laptop stand.
Like you gotta, it's like you're opening up like the tome of like.
Yeah, they did 2 of these. They made another one too. Oh, speaking of which, bringing that question all the way back around that was asked about Stan Lee and Ditko, they made the same sort of thing for Ditko's Spider-Man called the Ditko is Amazing, and there are perfect reproductions of the line art from Amazing Fantasy 15 in here, which were scanned from the Library of Congress from that fine anonymous donation of some kind person.
Nice, that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. All right, so Baz, we're gonna wind this down.
Okay, real quick. I dug these out of storage for tonight. I just want to see if you remember these guys.
Bad Rock. That's from issue 5 or 6. That's a Todd toy.
Yep.
You want to hear the rap? You want to hear the rap? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Because I wrote a jingle and starred in a McFarlane commercial for the Youngblood toys. I did, and I remember. I know it by heart. It goes, "Come on, everybody, just cut the noise. You got something new with the Youngblood toys. If Unbeatable Odds was the name of the game, you could count on one man, and Shaft is his name. Cool armor you want, go to the extreme. You can call Sentinel from the Youngblood team. Troll, get a reaction when you call for Youngblood. You'll get set for action." And that was the toy commercial. I sat there like, holding the toy out. Yeah, it was crazy. It was good times. That was like 95. That was 1995.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. That's freaking awesome. Good.
That was fun.
So April 25th, right? April 25th, Black.
April 25th. We're looking at it, and if you want to show the let me grab it real quick. It's on my iPad. The Indiegogo campaign. So these guys can check out the Indiegogo campaign for this really awesome cover. Let me pull it up. We've got here's my pencils right here. I don't know if
you got to put them on like a 45-degree angle so there
we go. So there you go. There we are. So these are the pencils to the Red Sonja cover. And if I do this, these are the pencils to let's do it one more time. There's the pencils to the Evil Ernie cover. So that's on Indiegogo. If you search Black Flag Red Sonja or Dynamite Comics, you'll see it up there. There's all kinds of really cool packages. We started on Tuesday. Next week on that Tuesday, there's going to be a brand new announcement. I see Jay Money in the house. We got Justin McClure and Death Metal Hero. What's up? What's up? What's up? Those are some regulars on my show. I love those gentlemen. Anthony Perone's in the house too. I see him. We're going to be doing that up until the 24th, leading into the Black Flag Pineapple Perception campaign, and it's my first campaign. I'm super stoked. This story is going to be out of this world, and I'm really excited to bring the preview art. I'm going to be bringing the cover and 5 of the interior pages for people to see, like, basically what the flavor of the book is going to be.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'll
Thank
mark
you.
it on my calendar. You guys mark it on yours.
Thank you.
Baz, anything else?
That's it, man. Yo, Dan, thanks for coming.
Of course, man.
Big fan
of
here.
Course. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Welcome to ComicsGate.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And, it's like I said, it's all about the fans, and we're here for you. We're here to make comic books like they were back in the days when they were good.
Awesome. You can't say it any better than that. Everybody in the chat, I didn't get a chance to shout you guys out, but thank you for joining us. As always, we'll catch you next week. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Maybe drop a like. It really helps with the algorithm and all that other
Smash the likes, yo.
There you go. Smash the like button, because YouTube's got their own set of stuff.
Even though you can't see more videos anymore of me, it's really annoying, but anyway,
oh, my kids say the same thing. What do you mean I got to be 13? What do you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, hey, bam, bam, bam. That's how it's done. That's how it's done.
Look,
I miss being 9.
It was also Grayson's birthday today. Captain Awesome celebrated his 9th birthday, so happy birthday to my boy.
Happy birthday, Grayson.
Shout out to Jezebel, a big
Yes.
ComicsGate fan, for
yes.
helping us get this interview with the great Fraga Boom.
Yeah, she was good. Is her last name Mejia?
Mejia, yeah.
Yeah, Mejia. Yeah, she's cool, man. Very cool. Cool chick.
Now I get back on the show. All I have to do is just listen to this. It's awesome.
4 more years. 4 more years, and then you can be on.
Gentlemen, you guys don't go anywhere just yet. Everybody in the chat, we'll see you next week. Take care. Thanks for joining us. And we'll do the collectibles and all that bullshit we missed this week. We'll do it next week. See you soon.
Awesome.